Hey everyone, I'm Kunaal Bajwa.
And I'm Lance Jordan.
We are two nerds who decided to start a podcast in 2020 due to the pandemic. No topic is necessarily off the table, and we'd like you to join us in hearing our thoughts on various topics, ranging from anime to Zeppelins. We have it all. Here we go.
Welcome to another edition of They Need a Hobby podcast. Now with a total number of plays of today's episode of 769, we are getting ever so close to that 1,000 mark. Kunaal, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm pretty good. It's been like a beautiful couple weeks in town, which has been a real good change after the snowstorm we had.
Yeah, it's a crazy way to end a snowstorm, is having beautiful weather. You know, good things are happening around the city. Short shorts are back. Sundresses. I think it's going to be a good summer.
Yeah, it's going to be hot as balls. For sure. For sure. There is going to be no way around that. But I'm excited.
So there's even more reason to be excited.
Oh, yes.
Today we're here because we're going to talk about fighting. We're going to talk about martial arts.
Yep.
You know, how this came about is we had a new Mortal Kombat trailer.
Yes, we did.
And we even started a little friendly talk in our, social media, Instagram.
Oh, yeah, we did.
You know, Kunaal is excited.
I'm very excited. You can look at my Instagram page and see how excited I am. So, yeah, I'm going to leave that there.
I, on the other hand, have my reservations, but
I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not like gonna bend over backwards for it, but I'm gonna support it.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it like the support it I think it deserves, and my expectation. I think you said it the best. Your expectations should not be so high with the track record of video game movies.
Yeah,
and it's not. But I'm willing to give it a chance. They've got some great potential. So
yeah, absolutely. So we're not just talking about Mortal Kombat today. We're also going to talk about, your own background in martial arts. And, I think a good place to start is to talk about, how you got into martial arts. Like, so what initially made you want to begin martial arts training?
So like a lot of the episodes on this podcast, it involves my brother. And he's always begrudgingly saying, he's like, yeah, I'm the one that showed you this. I'm like, okay, cool your jets, relax. Yes, you did. You get the credit for that, but then I took it forward.
That's right.
And thank you for support on that one. Yeah, so basically what happened, we used to watch a lot of Kung Fu movies growing up, and it's funny because I grew up really liking Jackie Chan more than I do now. I loved, Saw the Rush Hour movies more times than I can count. I've seen Rumble in the Bronx. What else have I seen by him? Drunken Master. I had a big kung fu kick, and I just loved how the athletics of him. He could do backflips, do front flips. The amount of just sheer tomfuckery that he would do for his movies, and how many injuries he has today.
Yeah,
just is astounding. So that's how I got into it. Then, of course, you got your animes, your cartoons, any kind of action there. Just always was super inspiring to watch. Another big show was like Samurai Jack. That was a really good one. So that's how I kind of fell into it. And then I would follow it for years and years. And it kind of is definitely tied to my own mental health. It was like where I felt I was kind of useless. And I needed to know how to fight for myself and defend myself, because the high school I went to, in retrospect, it's kind of funny, but I always thought there was going to break out, because there was a lot of richer kids that liked to kind of big dog me and play alpha roles with me. And it was super compared to what other people I've heard their experiences with school, actually getting into fights and actually having things that were somewhat dangerous, and I look at mine and I'm like, that was actually relatively safe. I was fine. Then again, it was a private school, so go figure. But I always felt like something was going to happen, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start weightlifting, and I'm going to start working out. And I just Googled Jeet Kune Do in the nearby area. I didn't expect to get a result, and I found one. And that's pretty much how I started my martial arts path from that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, you start training.
Yeah.
Can you take us down that journey?
Yeah. I was 17. Mm-hmm. The second Batman movie had just come out from Christopher Nolan. And it was actually interesting because I found that there's a lineage. So if you ever do martial arts, you'll find out, if you guys remember that scene in Spaceballs, whenever Lord Helmet's telling Lone Star, I'm your father's brother's sister's cousin's former nephew, who used to roommate with you. And he's like, well, what does that make us? He's like, absolutely nothing. That's kind of how relationships in martial arts go. It's even though I'll be goofy, I'm it's oh yeah, he's from this branch of the Inasana community, or he does these martial arts, and I've met someone who's trained with him, but not trained with him, but I've trained with his top student. And so there's just this large reach of we're connected, but we're also don't know each other at the same time.
Okay.
So there's a lot of indirect connections or people that we've met by mutual association. It's straight up like that, and typically it's so far out from there. So yeah, I started doing martial arts, and I was like, okay, I want to learn all the Jeet Kune Do I can. And I was at this place that was all the way out in West County, and I think I was there for about 2 years. And then I went to college, and I would come back every once in a while and do a class here and there. Then I graduated. After that, I found out that place had closed down, and my original teacher was very bad at technology, so he didn't really keep in touch with me. Then I find out, as you do find out in a lot of martial arts worlds, is there's huge politics and huge personalities that get involved. So apparently there was a big split, and one of the people who was a high-ranking student went off with the other people who were, quite frankly, just good at being adults and paid their bills on time, and started off their own place. So after college, I joined up back with them and realized I had to correct a bunch of stuff that I had learned before. And then now it's 6 years later, and that's how I pretty much got to this path.
I feel like as a casual guy who, I also love Kung Fu movies, but
right.
I don't know how much work it takes to really, I won't even say master certain martial arts, but to even go into a gym or a dojo and be like, hey, I want to learn this, is there a ranking system?
Yeah. So
levels.
So this is the fun part. Number one, there's no federation for martial arts in general. There are places that will give you certificates based on how much you've trained and how long you've trained, and it's pretty much by word of mouth that you the community is really small. Is the point I try to get across to people. Yeah, and every style has their own different ranking system. Black belts have become now as the penultimate. Okay, you've mastered all of the curriculum, all of the knowledge, all that stuff, and that's pretty perennial everywhere you go. One of the things that I hate whenever people talk to me about martial arts is oh yeah, you just need to do it for a couple of years and you're fine. I'm no. It takes. Some people say that it takes a straight 5 to 10 years to really get a good semblance really in one art or something like that. Hollywood has ruined a lot of things in life, and martial arts is one of them. If you spend 90 minutes or 20 minutes doing a training montage, then you're immediately a master. And it's the most infuriating thing that I see every time it's on there. It's when Rey automatically just is able to fight. Yeah, bullshit, she's the chosen one. I don't care. Yeah. She still should spend time and dedication and struggle of how to learn how to fight. There was nothing of that sort. That's why I didn't even watch the last movie. So it takes years. It takes years. It takes time. And I will say, I just had a lesson this morning, and whenever you do master one form, it does get easier to do other forms. It's quicker. Mm-hmm. So realistically, yeah, you can pick up things quicker as you go along. So basically, the way I've trained, I think this is where we should probably head up. We would run coordination drills. You build your coordination, you run drills, and then you do safe level sparring, light sparring, where you're not either you're wearing headgear or you're just like kind of tapping each other as a way of doing that. Because if you don't, then you'll just get severe brain damage. And people are like, well, that's not being hardcore enough. I was like, yeah, then just talk to Wanderlei Silva and see how he's doing these days, or any other retired boxer, and how much they're shaking. I know they sign up for it, and so that's part of it.
Is that the goal of martial arts, though, for you to prove yourself as a warrior? Where I feel like growing up, it was more so a defense mechanism. You learn martial arts to defend yourself.
For me, it definitely was. Like, that mentality was very, very apparent. I was like, I'd seen enough anime and kung fu movies in general to be like, to kind of espouse that kind of subconsciously, where I was like, this is my way of proving my worth. This is my way of proving my strength. I'm going to be the best I can. And no matter what's thrown at me, I never really verbally talked about this, so it's kind of weird for me to say this out loud. No matter what's being thrown into my way, I'm going to overcome it because I want it more than these bastards are trying to stop me from doing all this stuff. So, like, I'm going to be the very best that no one ever was at that point. So let's rewind a little bit, because I feel like I've been so worried about diving deep in this because there's so much for me to talk about. So, like, so I stepped in wanting to learn Jeet Kune Do. And what I've learned is that there's really no way to codify it. We'll do certain, like, essentially look at Jeet Kune Do as a mindset. Like, okay, you're going to literally take everything that fits your body type, your personality, your approach to combat, and take the best of those and use them to your ability. And there's always the classic term, absorb what is useful, be like water, hack away the inessentials. And that's really cool. But I've come to say, like, hack away the inessentials and maybe just put them on the shelf. You'll come back to them as you progress in your journey. So in Jeet Kune Do, it's basically American or global kickboxing. They take things from boxe française savate, which is a French style, or they'll take stuff from American boxing. You'll even see, like, some techniques from, like, the Dempsey drop that's incorporated in. They take Chinese trapping and Filipino trapping and incorporate that in there. So there's really, like, if you learn Jeet Kune Do, and so I'm under the Inosanto branch. And so we go to seminars. Well, hopefully when COVID's over, we'll go back to them. But we go to these seminars, and kind of the material that we are learning gets tweaked, gets updated, because he's consistently running new drills on them. And they'll be like part of this, like 2 days that we spend in these seminars. So one of them will be, half of it will be like JKD, the other half will be Kali, and then like Silat, and then we'll like finish the second half of the day with anything he didn't get to. So Kali is the Filipino martial arts that I do. So it's like all the stuff you've seen Arrow, or check out our old Arrow podcast that we did earlier on last year, and you'll get a much more in-depth explanation. But essentially, it's the Filipino and Indonesian styles that are taught under kind of one blended branch. And so it's stick, knives, empty hand, scarf, and it also includes grappling too. But not in the same way that BJJ does it, but very similar, and it incorporates weapons with grappling. So I've had experience in that at this point too. And then there's also the grappling portion is also known as Silat. So that's the third art that I'm ranked in. So I'm currently ranked in 3 different arts, about halfway to instructor. So I still have a lot to learn. And I also just started doing BJJ private sessions too. And I've had exposure to Yang style Tai Chi, which is a lot of fun. I feel like a waterbender. It's great. I did that in college, and then I did a couple months of American style karate at the Y, which lasted about a month. Yeah, as most people do it at the Y for karate. But so yeah, that's my background. I feel like I should have talked about that before, but
that's good.
Yeah.
Back to pop culture, the good things going in it, the bad, as far as how media is portraying martial arts.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's always really cool for me to go and see like shows like Arrow, where they do a really good job of showing drills that I've done. Mm-hmm. So you always have to give a little, because one, they're showing like a 3D activity on a 2D plane. Okay. So a lot of camera tricks, a lot of wide shots. So you have to get like, it's not 100% of how they would do it, but it's close enough to where you could appreciate and see what they're doing. So I really like the way that they did in the Arrow and CW shows for that, because a lot of the same fight choreography is like stuff I've done.
Okay.
So that's cool for me.
What about in Daredevil when
Yes.
he's fighting in the hallway?
Thank you for reminding me that. So that's another thing that's really done really well is the one-shotters. So like ever since they did first season at Daredevil, where he goes and rescues a little boy taken by the Russians, that became a full-on. I think it was like 15 or 12 minutes long, where there's no cuts. So no cuts. If you go back to Singing in the Rain, a cut's basically when they show it from a different angle, and that's when they've edited the movie to make it look seamless. There's nothing of that. So what they would consistently do, and I actually got to meet Charlie Cox, who played Matt Murdock in that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Did I not tell you that?
No.
Oh, yeah. I got his autograph. He's a super cool guy.
Right on. Where did you meet him at?
Yeah, it was the WizardCon at, I think, 2016. 2015 or 2016. Yeah, it was 2016 March. Yeah. Wow. That's like 5 years almost exactly.
Yeah. So this was like season 1 of Daredevil?
Season 1 of Daredevil. I think season 2 had just been released. Like they had just thrown it up. And first of all, super fucking good looking guy. And number 2, he held up the line just to talk to me. I mentioned all these martial arts to him. He's like, "What are those?" And I'm like, "They are martial arts." He's like, "Oh, I just do what the stunt doubles tell me."
Really?
And that stunt double is Chris Brewster, who also did the choreography. He was one of the stunt doubles for Captain America.
Okay.
In the Marvel Universe, which I thought was cool. If you look at certain scenes of like Daredevil and Captain America, if you put them side by side of like showing them specifically like American boxing, you start to see the similarities of how they move, which is kind of cool. Go back and roll it back if you can. So yeah, I met him and I asked him like, how did all the how the training go? And he's like, oh, it's pretty cool. And because me and Chris Brewster actually run each take at the same time. So like he'll run a take and then they'll switch out and bring in Chris. So like when you're seeing the final product, you don't know actually if it's Chris or Charlie Cox that's going at it. For the one-shotters, what they did something called the Texas Switch. They would have the camera either stationary or moving, but with no cuts. Have him come into a room and fight a bunch of guys. And then immediately after the camera moves, Chris or Charlie would be hiding and they would jump out and then get into frame and then do another attack. And then they would consistently do this over and over, like doing this Texas Switch. So the stage would be built that they could openly go behind the camera and then do another take. It's a really cool way. They did a similar thing on, and I think we're going to talk about this later, but they did a similar thing on the Cobra Kai school fight.
Okay.
Yeah. So examples like that do a good job. There's a show called Warrior on HBO Max, which is taken over by Shannon Lee, who's interesting. And the guys on there, Joe Taslim and the guy who plays Awesome, the main character, they have a couple of good one-shot scenes where the camera just like, as if it's on a rolling. Do you ever, like, if you grew up in the 90s, whenever you saw a TV getting rolled in on that like right
on that cart,
you knew it was gonna be a good day.
You're right.
Basically, like, imagine putting the camera on that and just rolling it out to see, like, to follow the fight as it's going. That way, it's not too stationary and you don't get kind of bored, because I think a lot of the old chop sock era 1970s kung fu clips would do, like, they would kind of just have the camera at one stop and then you would just be there forever, which has its own charm. But for today's world, they move the camera to keep it interesting, so that way you stay attentive and everything. So that they've done a really good job of doing stuff like that. I need to watch more of Warrior, but Daredevil did a great job. The Punisher did a really good job, and
really?
And that's Eric Linden is the stunt double for that guy, and you've probably seen his work now because he's shown up on Stunt Doubles Talk, and it's where they have like it's done by the guys who were involved with a YouTube group called Rocket Jump, and they're all saying there's like 3 guys on the couch. 2 of them are stunt doubles. One of those 2 is a rotating stunt double guest that they keep on getting, and then another guy is like a video editor. And so they ask him, they watch like old clips and talk about like, how did this happen? Is this real or is this a camera trick? And they break it down. It's pretty cool. I don't remember the title off the top of my head, but Eric Linden came on and said he was fighting Chris Brewster the whole time when they had all those fights. And Eric Linden did some really good breakdowns of a bunch of scenes. They threw on Meals on Wheels, the old Jackie Chan movie.
Yeah.
He did a really good job of showing, like, talking about the Punisher as well. And there's a bunch of scenes specifically in the Punisher where they're actually using like real attacks that I've seen and done or trained with. It's like specifically like a return to sender where someone's trying to stab you and you manipulate their hand in a certain way to stab themselves with a knife. So like there's cool stuff in there.
In the Punisher, what fighting styles were used in that? Because I always kind of see like the Punisher as a guy who just brawls, like not a technical like fighting style.
Come on, let's go.
He just goes in on people.
Yeah, so like technically he's a Marine. So they learned something called MCMAC, Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. That's what it stands for. So essentially, they're like, win as much as you can and fight as much as you can. They learn a lot of Kali, a lot of Silat, a lot of American boxing, Muay Thai, pretty much everything that I've talked about on here so far. So Muay Thai, Kali, American boxing, Silat, BJJ. They're very multi-talented, very multi-trained. And they have I actually talked about this in that history presentation too.
Yeah.
So check that out if you can. And they have like a 6-tier understanding of attack, depending on the situation, because they're coming in contact with civilians the whole time. For the show, to answer your question, so we don't get too off tangent, he's using a lot of Kali.
Okay.
He's using he's trapping a bunch. He's using, there's even in the second season of The Punisher, he's using a combat stick, which is very evident of Kali. He even mentions like a certain knife that the Marines use, which are K-bars, pretty common in the Kali world. There's just a brand of knife that the military likes to employ. And yeah, it's really good for CQC, close quarter combat. So, but yeah, he fights as much as he can. Like the second season, he just grabs a fucking like weight and just starts smacking people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, like makes sense.
I mean, it gets the job done.
It gets the job done. You have to, like, he's not going the distance, going rounds with people. He's like, I'm gonna kill you.
Right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm walking out of here. You might not. So that's his approach to combat. I mean, it makes sense. He's a trained Marine. So he's not doing that. He's not doing a good job. So
he's just not doing it. Tell it to his face.
You're gonna give Frank Castle a pink slip.
Right. So there's this scene. Once upon a time in Hollywood, there's like, so Brad Pitt is like able to easily like throw Bruce Lee around, and I thought it was interesting because we were talking about doing this topic.
Yeah,
I remembered that scene because actually I had seen a meme where it lists a bunch of martial arts styles and some dude just like picking it apart, like, this is how you beat these guys, these are how they beat guys. Oh, these guys can't really fight. So
everybody likes to talk a big game in martial arts. Yeah, myself included.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that I'm above that, because if you train in something, you believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have enough space in my mind for it to be like, I don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And people that talk like that typically are very insecure.
Yeah.
It comes down to a very granular level if someone can fight and, what really works for them. This is like where the Jeet Kune Do is really coming out. It's like where it's like, what works for you, what works for all of this stuff. Like, do you want to teach a bouncer ways to kill? No, because they'll get arrested.
Yeah.
It's an appropriate response to everything that you're doing. And there's a very famous saying, like, a punch is a punch and a kick is a kick. When you start training, a punch isn't a punch and a kick isn't a kick. When you really get good at training, then a punch is a punch and a kick is a kick. Not my line. Reeling it back into your question, I actually read up on that and I saw the clip. So if you're Bruce Lee and you're doing a lot of things that anger a lot of the, let's say, the older guard in Chinese communities, specifically who are training people. First of all, he's teaching Guaylo, which is a slur for anyone who's not Chinese. or rounded-eyed. And he's doing a lot of things that normally like soft-spoken people who don't believe in themselves do. Don't get me wrong, he didn't finish all of his training in Wing Chun or their trapping system. That's why he actually called it Junfan Gung Fu instead of Wing Chun Gung Fu when he was teaching people. So my point is this. Sure, you have to kind of be an asshole to, show your worth sometimes, but this, like the clip that they show him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, doesn't really make any sense.
How so?
I've met people that he's trained with and everything, and they don't have that perception of him across the board.
Yeah.
He was not the type of person to brag about how he could kill somebody. Sure, he actually even loved Muhammad Ali. He said, in a street fight, I'd win, but in the ring, I'd lose because there are different rules there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, to add a layer of irony, Brad Pitt was trained by one of Bruce Lee's later on students. So it's like Damon Caro taught him in Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Oh, okay.
Damon Caro is a student of Dan Inosanto, and Inosanto, student of Bruce Lee. So the lineage is there. And so it's just kind of funny to me that even Brad Pitt was asked later, he's like, this makes no sense that we're beating Bruce Lee.
I kind of always took it, and I could be wrong, because it kind of reminded me of something that happened over the weekend where Israel Adesanya, a UFC fighter,
the style bender.
Yeah, he moved up from middleweight to fight this light heavyweight. And it seemed like in that fight, at least to me, and Kerwin and AJ could speak more about it, I'm pretty sure, after they listened to this. But it looked like to me that he wasn't big enough to, beat the light heavyweight champ. Right. There wasn't enough power there. So when I saw the Once Upon a Time movie, well, bringing it back to that, it looked like they were trying to, in a way, not diminish martial arts, but like kind of say that the guy who was bigger and more powerful
would win.
I
mean, that like size matters.
Yeah.
No matter what anyone tells you in martial arts, size does matter.
Right.
You train in order to counter that. That's how it works. And
I guess that's where the disrespectful part came in, because it was kind of like Brad Pitt's character in the movie wasn't really trained. He's just like a brawler,
right?
Who just like
wasn't he like former Spec Ops or something in the movie?
Oh yeah, he was in the military. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and that he just joins up to be a stunt double. After that,
there's always something in like that movie where it's like something happened in the past that they never explain.
Right.
Like some trauma. But yeah, he just like basically like throwing Bruce Lee around.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends like what year this happened, because there's a big incident called the Wong Jack Man fight, which is like when the Chinese grandmasters got mad at him for teaching, and at that time he only knew like some Tai Chi, like some amount of other Chinese styles. His primary focus was like Junfan Kung Fu or Wing Chun, really. And so did he know a whole lot of grappling and stuff like that? Probably not.
Yeah.
It depends on what time it was for that. I have to check the years, honestly, and when the movie's taking place. But yeah, it just made him out to be like a complete asshole. And it didn't really show his character by interviewing friends and family that knew him. It just took like, oh no, we'll just play him as someone who's totally fine with saying that he can kill everybody.
Right.
Typically those people can't kill everybody or are just really reckless.
I mean, also too, and I don't to defend it or not, but like, you know how like we live in this meme culture where like you couldn't kill Bruce Lee, you can't kill Chuck Norris, and it's like these guys are, they're very much beatable, and they're probably actually really humble. I know like Chuck Norris spoke about, he's just like enjoying the memes that people have created about him. Like he knows like
his tears cure cancer.
Right. Like he knows he can't fight a bear. Or so
because the bear would just get tired.
Yeah. So I thought it was like that too was like taking not really the hype. I don't mean to make it sound bad, but like the hype on Bruce Lee or like the mystique of him.
There totally is hype and mystique. We never got to see Bruce Lee do a Terminator Genesis. We never got to see him decline in his Hollywood career. He died when he was on top. On top of the world.
Yeah.
You go around the world, everybody talks about Bruce Lee. Everyone knows Bruce Lee. even if they don't know jack shit about anything else, they'll know Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And
like he's like modeled throughout pop culture,
right?
Like from anime to people fighting. Like there's been like a bunch of UFC fighters who
you're like, oh yeah, Bruce Lee's my idol, and it's always funny to me. Is like, oh yeah, he's my idol, and then like none of them will train in the Asano world. But I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then that's fine.
Yeah,
like, I like Muhammad Ali, and I haven't really trained that hard into American boxing. That's fair. But anyone can be beaten.
Yeah.
Anyone can be taken out. I think that's something that people don't want to say, don't want to accept.
Yeah.
Like, anyone can be beaten. You catch someone on the wrong day, their ass could be grass. Like, seriously. Like,
my favorite UFC fighters is like this past weekend lost. Like, so,
Who did he fight?
It's this Polish guy who's the light heavyweight champion.
Okay.
But, well, he wanted to move up and, win 2 championships in the UFC. Well, 2 championships in any like combat sport is like a big deal.
Right.
But I always kind of viewed him as somebody who wouldn't be big enough to go to light heavyweight.
I mean, yeah, like he was 135, I think,
at
his peak. And so I don't know what class that would be. Featherweight?
Who? Oh, Israel Adesanya?
I was talking about Bruce.
Oh, Bruce Lee?
Yeah.
Oh.
I call him on a first name, so.
We could talk about two. But no, yeah, so... Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's why they have weight classes. If you're gonna fight in the ring, like there's rules
in the ring,
and that goes back to the whole Street Fighter versus professional fighter debate. Like what's better? I'm like, okay. I think someone said it the best. Is like if you're fighting to the death, then learn street fighting. But if you're fighting in the ring, you're gonna be a professional fighter. It's gonna be different. There's rules and regulations there,
right?
But both learn from each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've had retire a lot of the big teachers now were retired pro fighters. So it's this whole thing is like, oh yeah, I don't need to like show my skills because I'm a street fighter. I'm like, okay, dude, like relax.
To go back to an earlier thing you were saying, like about light sparring,
mm-hmm.
I did like maybe a year in like.
Yeah.
A Muay Thai MMA gym.
Flashback to the first episode you talked about this. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't remember like, and those guys were like trying to train to become like fighters and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember like light sparring. Like they would always say that, but then like those guys didn't know how to like turn it off. Like whenever they hear this like bell.
Yeah.
They're like trying to fucking murder you.
Yeah.
So if anybody asks like,
yeah.
How many fights I lost? There's a lot in the gym world where it's like, I thought we were playing around.
It's like I thought this was like, chill, man. What the hell?
Right.
Yeah, you have to know what you're getting, know what you're signing up for.
Right.
Know what you're signing up for, and then be okay with that. The amount of professional fighters that end up becoming heavy drinkers or using drugs and stuff, I don't think we realize how much pain they're actually in.
Right.
There's a reason why they're spouting all this stuff on social media saying that they're the best or that they can take everything is like at the end of the day it's a way to hype themselves up and keep themselves going.
Yeah.
But that's to be said. But
and then I also think like some of those guys, like I'm thinking like Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano.
Yeah.
Like in their example, like I feel like they were using martial arts as a way to like catapult them to something else. You know what I mean? Like to stardom. Because I feel like
I think they lost the championship.
Yeah.
And then they decided, like I can be like an action star, and this is a good way. Like I don't know, it's a good move.
Yeah.
Honestly,
because I feel like would you rather be fighting, like basically fighting for your life?
Yeah.
In this one arena where you can like fight for the TV. And like not actually, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
fight.
Because you turn 40 and life changes. So
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, fighting, well, like boxing, fighting is kind of like along those lines of a really like contact heavy sport to where you really don't want to go past 35
at
or
least,
something.
Yeah. Like we would be considered, you and I would be considered old to step into that.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be like too late.
He's like these guys play too much anime or play too many video games, not anime.
Right. But like we will train you, but you will never. You probably don't want to go into a fight.
No. Yeah. And that's what's. I always find that to be a really cool thing. Is like the retired pro fighters become good teachers.
Yeah.
And they can still kick ass, but they just choose to walk a different path. at that day,
yeah.
which I always thought that's really cool. That's what I always appreciate that.
So like bringing it back, we spoke a lot about some of, your heroes, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And I know there's others, but what drew you to them? Like, what is it about these guys?
Yeah, I mean, if I can speak bluntly, they're small guys. They're small guys who could kick ass, man. I was not the love. Small guys who weren't white, and it's a form of representation. At the end of the day, it's something cool, and I saw the amount of dedication, the amount of just enjoyment that I would get from watching them too. I'm not a huge gore fan, which always surprises people, even though I'm a big Mortal Kombat fan.
I was about to say the whole end of the moves is to rip people apart.
It is, and I actually don't like I don't really care for the fatalities. I know it's very odd.
That's what this famous for.
I know, and don't get me wrong. Sometimes I don't mind playing and doing the fatalities, but it's gotten a bit too much for me lately. Where it's just gotten way too realistically gory. This is a bit much.
Some of it, I mean, it's realistic, but then unrealistic, because it's when they introduced the the bone crushing stuff, or you X-ray, and you'll see
their liver, and you freeze their liver, crush it, and then you step up to them and then smack their
crack
skull.
Their head.
Yeah,
you're still up moving.
Yeah, that's the beauty of fighting games.
Yeah,
you can do all of that and all right, fine, round 2, let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm more interested. I think this leads into the question that you're asking me too, or you have been asking me, and I like the ability just to be able to move your body. I often think that there's something that I really recommend people to watch is this guy called Paul McCartney, not the Beatle. He's actually one of the instructors that I've met. His nickname is the British Ninja, and he had this huge TED Talk that came out a couple years ago, 90 minutes long, but it's really good. And he talks about how he helped this kid who had cerebral palsy develop more coordination, and how just helping people who had brain damage gain some of their cognitive abilities back just by teaching them certain things in martial arts. I look at martial arts now as a bigger definition. It's what's a movement system? Is it just destruction? People often think oh, martial arts, you can destroy people. I'm yeah, I mean, that's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's fun to watch that, but it's also really cool to see yourself move in an athletic way, in a way that you've always seen on TV, or that you've seen your teachers do. But it's really cool to see just the amount of command you have on the body. I think that's what drew me to the most to those people, especially Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, because they just have an amazing command on their body, and were able to accomplish just amazing physical feats. Plus, I was not a very physically active kid. This has been a recent development in honestly the past 12 years for me, and I'm about to be 29 in 2 months. So
scary times.
I know, right? We're becoming young legends, is what I like to say. And then I just hug a pillow and saying we're becoming young legends, and rock myself to sleep. But yeah, I love the coordination that it can help you build. You just goofy stuff around the house. I'll catch stuff before they fall. I'll open doors a certain way. It forces me to be flexible a lot more. Forces me to get up from the floor, not by using my hands, but by using my legs. Keeps my core strong. I like the attributes it develops into you as a person, how you can read people, how you can read attacks. So for me, it's more than just the violence and the gore. I like these things for the command of the body. That was a big jump. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, that's good, because I think that goes to my earlier thing I was trying to say. When you watch a Jackie Chan movie, or even maybe I've seen a couple Bruce Lee, but I don't know if it was always about just getting into these huge fights. Even with Ip Man, it was always I'm not here to fight you, but if you come at me, then there's going to be a fight.
Right.
But I think somewhere probably in the 90s, it became more of bash this person's head in and kill this person, where with Jackie Chan, it was kind of he'll beat you up to the point that you're just not going to fight him no more. You're just laying there.
So it's interesting you bring up this point. In the couple of documentaries I've seen with him, when Bruce Lee, just as fast as Bruce Lee came and as fast as he left, they were looking for someone to fill the void. Mm-hmm. And they kind of turned to Jackie Chan because he was in Enter the Dragon as a stunt double.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nuts. There's a cool story of him actually accidentally hitting Jackie Chan and knocking him out temporarily.
Yeah, that's the story I heard. Yeah.
It's a pretty famous, kind of adorable story that he always talks about. And he's like, I realized that I didn't want to just be a Bruce Lee clone. He doesn't say it in these words, but I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I wanted to be me, which is like, I'm not a warrior who's trying to prove his worth. I'm the goofy guy in the back that's like slacking off on work, but who can still kick ass, and use a ladder and, just scale a building while I'm free falling and everything. Yeah.
There was always a lot of humor in Jackie Chan movies now that I think about it.
He's actually, there's some crazy movies where he's really shown his like dramatic worth, like in the Shinjuku incident and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then like even in his later career, like they released a movie, how many years ago was that? Like maybe 2017, 18, The Foreigner.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed that movie.
I liked it too. I just wanted more Jackie. Because there was too much Pierce Brosnan with a bad Irish accent. Which is sad because he's from Ireland, I think, too.
Damn. You criticize his accent. All right. So
it was bad, man.
it was such a bad. You touched on it a little bit earlier. So you did this presentation for the Missouri Historical Society about martial arts,
right?
And the U.S. Armed Forces. We know it's out there. If people haven't seen it, definitely go check it out.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
How did this even come about? I guess speaking about your love for martial arts, we get the idea that you love it, but how did you put this together in your head? How did it come about?
Yeah. So I got to give a good shout out to a sweet lady named Fran, and she works at the Soldiers Memorial Museum, and she also worked at the gym that you and I used to go to.
Okay.
Yeah. And she got to know my parents and stuff like that. I'm going to start this explanation with a weird sentence. I'm not a mercenary writer. And by that, I mean, like, whenever I was in school, I could never write a topic that I didn't like or have some sort of interest in. I knew colleagues in high school and college that would just like, yeah, I read this paper. Yeah, I didn't like this material at all. I'm like, I would go insane for me. Yeah. I'm like, I have to do something that I'm interested in to be well in it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be soul crushing myself the whole time.
But then that's like kind of weird for you to say because you're like interested in everything. Because I feel like you give me like a lot of like, I won't say random information, but it's like you'll give me information. And even on the podcast, you'll give us information about stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, what aren't you fucking interested in? Like, what don't you know?
Sports. Oh. I mean, that's pretty evident.
Who won the Super Bowl this year, Kunaal?
I don't even know. I don't even know who played in the Super Bowl.
Damn. All right.
See, there you go. You found one.
So in gym class, you could never write a paper about sports. I get it.
You know what's weird? Like, I was terrible in gym class, but all the gym teachers liked me just because I was like a nice kid. But
yeah, I got that too. It was like your effort
is horrible.
No, I mean like you showed up.
Right.
It's not your fault that,
like you're not good.
You're not going to be in the starting five of the, Lakers.
And I'm like, that's okay.
Exactly. Like, that's enough to pass.
That was another thing, though. We're joking, but that was another thing. Like, the reason why I came late to martial arts or late to physical fitness or moving in general is because, like, I was a shorter kid. I'm like 5'6"-ish. And, like, there's not a whole lot of patronage for someone who's like my height and wants to do something athletic. Like, it's like you either are genetically gifted or you're fucked.
Right.
Is often what I feel.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, let's get back to the explanation. So the way this started was like everything kind of goes back to my mental health as well of how and we'll dive into that in a later episode. But yeah, it had been a couple years since I graduated college. I was like, everyone who I knew who was in my realm of friends, a lot of them had either gone or were going or were studying to do like some sort of graduate school. Mm-hmm. And, I tried computer science. I tried tried that for a couple years, and I realized I hated every minute of it and would rather jump off a building than do it back there.
When I met you, were you doing it a little bit?
I think I just finished it.
Okay.
Right when I just met you.
Yeah.
And fun story. The boss at the end of it was like, yeah, you were kind of just a cancer out here. You didn't seem like you liked it at all. I'm like,
wow.
Okay, I'm going to leave today. And
like, oh, yeah, you were working at the one place. Okay. Yeah. Damn, he called you cancer.
Yeah. I was like, okay, all right. To be fair, I was not a great employee, so whatever. It's fine. Yeah, and I saw everyone do grad school, and I was like, well, but there was all this stress for me. I was like, I need to go to grad school. I need to go to grad school. I need to do something to show my worth. I needed to cast my might, so you will.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you know, I've been told that I'm smart. I have friends who I consider smart. Like, maybe grad school is the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Fran, and she was like, you're too much like my husband. And I'm like, what? And I was like, she's like, you're so wishy-washy. Just read up on these books. She was so sweet. She gave me these books and was like, read up on this if you like them. And she talked to me like, you know, what would I be interested in? So like stories about ethno-history, which is like history written by those who were oppressed, or the story who hasn't been told too much. And so I was like, that's really cool. Problem is there's not a whole lot of backing for that. There's not a really big market for it as such. I'd have to learn certain languages to pick that up. Like I thought about doing something on Indonesia, and I'd have to learn Indonesian to learn that. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. And I was like, well, she was connected with Socialist Memorial, and she said, why don't you do a project for them? Because I'd mentioned my martial arts, and she's like, that's amazing. Combine it. And I was like, hell yeah, we should totally do that. Because a lot of veterans who were in the war often learned martial arts when they were there and then brought it back. That's why we still have a really strong influence from World War II's time of you'll always see Korean, Japanese, and even Chinese systems everywhere you go, pretty much all around America, even to this day, even with MMA still being like big and powerful. So I was like, yeah, you know, it's a good place to do that. And then as I was researching for all the veterans, I was like, well, I know a lot of Kali Silat and, you know, other arts that I've trained in and had exposure to have, you know, show up in the military. So that's where that kind of project uplifted from there. It was actually surprising how much I had to take out for that project, then kind of package it into a 30-minute presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the hardest part of the whole presentation?
Cutting out parts?
Cutting out and then like figuring out what to put in, what to take out.
Exactly. And also realizing that so much of it was not hidden, but protected.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's difficult to describe. Like, we all have our secrets in the martial arts world. We all were like, you know, we'll only show these things and techniques to people who put in the time and effort, which makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But then you'll never know who's trained with who sometimes. Or they'll have like past students who have gone off and done stuff. And so like I was watching stuff in the military and stuff like training videos, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is totally Kali. I saw South Korean Marines and they're doing knife drills just like the ones I've done. Mm-hmm. And there was very little documentation I could find any kind of scholarship that would say, oh yeah, they learned this. I found one really good document that was 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I don't know how much they've changed since then.
Yeah.
Because that's a long time. So I had to do a lot of reading between the lines. I luckily was in contact with an instructor that was an infantryman. So he was in just like the army and spent time in there. But he had learned the Inasano lineage and stuff like that outside of the military. So he had primarily just done some BJJ, some boxing, Muay Thai, all that stuff. But yeah, I had to do a lot of digging, a lot of just searching around, and a lot of those people don't like talking because they've been trained, you know, not to talk about stuff they did in the military with, you know, certain things here and there. So that's pretty much how that happened.
And were you like happy with like, I mean, you personally, because I know you're kind of like a perfectionist. Maybe a little bit. Were you happy with the overall product at the end after giving the presentation? I
was. I wish I had a little more time for the questions and stuff. And I actually thought it was going to be a little longer, but it went faster than I expected. So yeah, I was happy with how it turned out. I was actually hungry for more, but I learned a lot of things. Like, also, I just had a conversation with my dad, and he's like, "Do you really want to go to grad school?" because I see like there's this guilt from you. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think I do. But I do love giving these presentations.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm trying to find something where I'm like, can research topics that I'm interested on. Maybe it's this podcast.
Yeah.
And to just talk about stuff that I'm interested in. Go from there.
Okay.
But yeah, as for the whole presentation on the whole, yeah, I was happy how it turned out.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you did it.
Me too.
You know, I'm mad you didn't share initially, but you know, we've already been down that road.
Okay,
but
well, this is what happened. I was nervous,
Yeah.
and it was always on the top of my mind. But I was like, you know, other things are going on. We'll figure that out. We'll figure this out.
It was during the pandemic too. Yeah, so I get you.
Thank you. I think.
I got you.
I'm finding out I'm more like my dad as I get older, which is pretty funny.
Mm.
We compartmentalize our secrets, and then all of a sudden we'll like casually mention it, and people are like, "What are you talking about?"
Like next episode, we find out you're president of a small island off the coast
of like Thailand or something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they got pictures of me.
Maybe.
That fortune came from somewhere. Anyway. So yeah, man, I'm glad we could talk about martial arts. I'm glad you could, you know, share more about what you've done. Kind of, you know, talk about some of the things going on in media, the good, the bad.
Yeah.
This has been very enlightening.
Good, because I've been feeling like... Well, actually, before we go further, do you want to talk about Cobra Kai and Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, so, I mean, just for me, personally, I think they could be good examples of, like, how the media portrays martial arts. I don't know how you see those.
So, like, I mean, I know I've said my gripes with martial arts movies in general, because they show, like, oh, he's learned everything in, like, 10 minutes. We're good. And and in the movie, they're like, oh, yeah, only a week has passed. And they're like, a high-ranking martial artist now. It makes no sense.
I will say the thing with Mortal Kombat 2 is like, well, this upcoming movie, you have the new character that they're introducing for it.
Cole, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like he's a kind of amateur MMA fighter. And then I just kind of wonder, and I don't mean to like be like, oh, which martial arts can be which martial arts, but it's kind of like there's always like some type of this one beats this one, no matter like if the dude only has so much training, this dude's like a grandmaster.
The problem is people are dynamic, so they'll train in different things. And also depends like how good are they at it. But like if you want to just, let's indulge it.
Yeah.
Let's indulge it for a minute. If you fight someone, like let's talk about the Gracies. Let's talk about the Gracies and how they just basically swept everything up when they came. Because they were fighting on the ground on cement floors in the Vale Tudo fights. And you have all these karate guys who are standing up and are like, why are you laying down? But they lost all the damn time because they had no grappling experience. So yeah, if they're just in one style, then yeah, you could lose a lot. But also, if they're just learning BJJ, then they get no punching or kicking. So they could also just easily as lose. Mm-hmm. So it depends, honestly.
Yeah.
It very much depends. But yeah, Cole's like, I'm excited for this movie because I got some small insider info. So the guy who played him is a guy named Louis Tan. He's actually pretty decently well known. He showed up in Wu Assassins. He showed up as the only cool character in the first season of Iron Fist on the Netflix series.
Who was he in that?
He was the drunken fighter who had the British accent. You don't remember him because he was only in one episode. Okay. That's the thing. Like, he was so... Like, in my eyes, I was like, you're the best character we've seen so far, aside from Colleen, who was all like, just absolutely gorgeous and talented. He showed up there. He's half Chinese and half English. And his dad, Philip Tan, was involved with a lot of, like, 90s, like he choreographed some of the Batman movies, like Tim Burton kind of era, which is actually pretty cool. And I think he was a part-time amateur Thai fighter for a while too. So during like when the pandemic started, and also when the Australian fires happened, he was Louis Tan was actually training in Australia. I think he had just left when the fires started, and he was posting pictures of learning from an Inasano instructor. I'll protect his name for now, but even the other stunt doubles were all wearing like the same jackets I've been wearing, and it was just really cool. So that's part of the reason I've been kind of jazzed about this whole thing, is because The training's there. They got Joe Taslim also showing up as Sub-Zero, which is just going to be awesome. And they were all learning like the same kind of drills. They all like were super shredded for the roles, all in great shape. There was an interview I saw, I think, on his Instagram story where he said there was this one specific scene where like it's later on in the movie, it beat him up so badly it took him, I think, like 3 days to get the scene finally completed. They wanted to get into one shot and he was just so beat up from it and everything. And he's doing his own stunts too, which is cool.
Louis Tan
is, yeah.
Okay.
He does most of his own stunts. So it has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see it because of that.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. I'm still on the fence.
Hey, I don't blame you at all. And if I'm disappointed, I won't be surprised. That's the thing.
Okay.
But yeah, I will say, like, before we move on, Cobra Kai, actually, like, the most recent season 2 has done a good job of talking about martial arts in general.
Yeah, but that was kind of like a show and a movie where it's like you said, you always had the issue with them just like no training, and then like, you know, all of a sudden they're, you know,
a master.
But, you know, even from season 1 of this show, it's like, you know, kids training, like going through the process,
right?
You know, wiping mats, and like even with like the original one, the whole wax on, wax off, you know, wiping the windows.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a positive example.
Yeah, I think it builds a great community. I've met fantastic people from the martial arts community. I've also met a lot of dickheads.
Yeah,
that I don't want to talk to anymore. Like it's a mixed bag, but I've met the kindest of people, and I've met human beings, believe it or not. So like, you know, I met the best and worst, and I've met some amazing camaraderie. Like I go to some seminars, or I have gone to seminars like around the country. And I'll see someone who I haven't seen for 2 years, and I'm like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And they immediately remember me, and I'm like, "Hi, how's the training going?" And you know, we maybe do a couple beats together in terms of a couple drills. Like you meet some really great people, and the camaraderie aspect is something I would never give up. Part of the reason I still do it.
Okay.
There was also another thing in Cobra Kai where he learns a bunch of nerve strikes, which doesn't really work in real life, but it was fun to watch. That's neither here nor there. Sorry if this episode's been a little all over the place, but
yeah,
it's a big topic for me. So,
all right. Anything else you'd like to add on the topic?
I don't know. I feel like I talked all over the place. Thank you for reeling it in when you had to.
That's all good. I mean, we covered a lot.
We did. This is a pretty big episode.
Yeah, and there's always chance for another one.
This is true. If you want clarifications or it to be less boring, let me know.
I mean, you know, martial arts, I think it's in a place now with the media that is bigger probably than what it's been in the past. I think there was a weird spot, well, not a weird spot, but there was a point in the 90s where the big action martial arts movies were gone, going away.
The 90s were a golden age for a lot of things. Yeah. Martial arts was weirdly one of them. Yeah.
And then I feel like to like revitalize martial arts, they put it's like kind of been in the superhero community a little bit.
Oh, 100%.
With like the Batman movies and like you said, Daredevil.
Yeah. There's a whole episode we could do about how that happened.
Yeah.
It's done, and you guys are sick of it, but I don't give a fuck because this is my podcast. So I'll say anyway. It stems from the Inosanto community with a guy named Jeff Amata and an organization called 8711.
Mm-hmm.
Look them up.
Yeah.
We can do an episode about them later, but check them out.
Yeah, okay. I think we've completed another episode.
I think we have.
Thank you guys for listening.
We love you.
Leave comments, you know, no reporting comments about Kunaal loving you, but, you know, leave positive comments and, you know, negative comments. We'll take all the comments.
We take all the comments. And, if you don't love me, tell me. That's fine.
We'll make a better episode, you know, next time, and even better episodes
on the way.
Along the way.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. Hey fan peeps, thanks for joining, and as always, we appreciate any feedback. You can follow us on our Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and also at TNAH Pod on Instagram and Twitter.
Hopefully one day we'll find a hobby and maybe even be one of the cool kids. Peace.